Our mic's on? Yeah. Could you just, Mrs. NaMais, just check your microphones? Test. Hello? Mrs. Smith?
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello?
Okay, we're all on. So we're going to get started. So I've had the pleasure this morning of spending some time with these two wonderful people. This is Mrs. NaMais to my right, and this is Mrs. Smith to my left. And over the course of the last couple of weeks, you guys have had an opportunity to look over some articles. One that had to do with Auschwitz that basically just talks about the nature of the death camps. And the other article was about the plight of those who survived all of that. And it's one thing to read about that and sort of imagine what that would be, sort of in the abstract. But then it's a whole other thing to actually hear from people who had lived that history. And Mrs. NaMais and Mrs. Smith have very interesting stories that have to do with the history, very complex history, that took place during Nazi Germany. And so they're going to share their stories with you, and at some points I may interject just to clarify for you some of the things that you might need to make clear. And then we'll have some time at the end for you all to ask questions. All right? So, Mrs. Smith, I'm going to ask if you would start and just share your story, and then Mrs. NaMais will follow, and we'll take it from there. Thank you all.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. It's lovely to see you all here. And I hope you can hear me. I have a frog in my throat, but I hope it's going to work. Anyway, I have a good story from Mrs. NaMais. She was in a concentration camp, that's all I'm going to say about her. But I lived in Germany, and you probably read about the rise of Hitler and what happened. And as Hitler came to power in 1933, I was 6 years old, almost 7, 6.5. School there started in April instead of in September. So in April when I started, I was 6.5. And I started in a regular public school, and Hitler was just in power for about 3 months, and there weren't too many laws. As you know, I'm Jewish, and against Jews. But as we went along, it got worse and worse. So I went to this public school, but they already had things like we weren't allowed to participate. We didn't want to participate because we certainly were not for Hitler. But in the morning they got up and they had Hitler in the morning, and then they would have a swastika and there's holes in it, and they would put some screws, you know, they put them in there and pay 10 cents a day to do that for Hitler, you know, for his coffers. Anyway, that was and then the children started not to talk to us. They were already influenced, and we were very lonely, but there were other Jews with me in that class. And so that went on for about 2 years. In the meantime, I lived in a city that was 400,000 population, but we didn't have a Jewish school. A lot of them did have, like the parochial schools, but we didn't. And I lived on the Baltic Sea in the northeast. And so we, after, you know, I think by 1935 they started the Jewish school. And I think we waited a year, my parents, to have me enrolled in that school. And later on, we couldn't go to any other school. I think a year later, in 1937, they didn't allow any children. But the school was only a grammar school. It wasn't a high school because they had no high school. So they were allowed, the other children were allowed to go to the high school there, the older children. And this was a haven for us in a way because we were among ourselves. We had our, you know, friends there, and they did beautiful things for us because after a while we weren't allowed to go anywhere else because there was no television yet. But radios we had. We could listen to the radio, we could read, we could be with our friends. But you couldn't later on go to the movies anymore, theater, or concerts, or anything like that. And when you went on the street, it wasn't pleasant. We always would go, we lived on sort of a main street, but around the corner, if I wanted to take a shortcut, it was like a small street, and not many people were, and kids would pursue us, a jewel, you dirty jewels, things like that. And so we try to avoid that. On the main street in the beginning, there were also people who were daring it and defended us, grown-ups, but later on they didn't do that. And so that life went on like that until 1938. There's more and more restrictions for the adults, more and more laws against Jews that you couldn't do this, couldn't do that. You eventually had to give up all your jewelry, all your silver, all your gold, which that was the least of it, because those things came later. They also already had concentration camps starting in 1933. They had a couple of big ones, one near Munich, and but some Jews were there and then came back yet, alive, but never talked about it. I had a girlfriend whose father was, I don't know why, maybe he had said something in a concentration camp, and when he came back, he didn't even talk to his family about it. He just didn't want to talk about it. And so we went on until 1938, when, I don't know if you read that, there was they called it Crystal Night. That was the night when all of Germany, every Jewish household was visited, so-called, was quotation marks, by the Nazis, and they did a lot of damage, and some people were killed, and there were more suicides than ever on that night, on day, because people were afraid when they came to the front door, they jumped out the back window or something like that. This happened. I knew somebody who did it. And so they came, I'll tell you what happened to me now. We lived in an apartment house, which was just six apartments. Four of them Jewish people lived in, and then there were two Christians upstairs. And we didn't know anything except, I was telling you this morning to your chaplain, that we had a housekeeper, and our housekeeper was a Wednesday afternoon when it started in the evening and went through the next morning, the 9th and 10th of November. And we didn't know anything, but our housekeeper had a day off on Wednesday, and she came home Wednesday evening, and my father was not home. My father was in Berlin, the capital city of Germany. He went there often on business. So we were alone with her, and she came home, she said, something funny, strange is happening in the streets. They're all gathering, the Nazis, the party members. Something is going on, but we didn't know what, so we went to sleep. I was sleeping already, I guess, when she came home. And the next morning at 7, and during the night, my mother heard footsteps, boots, going up and down the stairs. No elevators then, they went up the stairs, down the stairs. And she thought maybe upstairs there were the two boys of the people who lived upstairs, the two sons of big Nazis. Whenever they came up and down the stairs, I went to the side to let them through, otherwise they might have thrown me down the stairs. But my mother thought maybe they had company and they were going up and down the stairs. But that was already, the Nazis came to visit them during the night. So in the morning at 7 o'clock, our doorbell rang, and our housekeeper, her name was Liesel, she went to the door and they said, "Is Mr. Bear," that's my maiden name, Bear, home? And she said, "No, he's not. He's out of town." Well, we want to say, "Is Mrs. Bear there?" "Yeah, but she has to get up first, so go in the living room." We left them in the living room. There were one young guy who was still a student. Now, he must be like 20 years old from the Gestapo. I don't know if the Gestapo was the secret police. And then two members of the Nazi party, the SS, stormtroopers. They were stormtroopers. And they went in the living room. My mother came in. They had, her desk was also in the living room. And they had thrown the papers that were on the floor. So my mother said, "Please pick up those papers. They're my papers to leave Germany. They were applications to come to the United States. And I took it so that I can leave this country, and they were very they were decent, you know, and other places they weren't that decent. But we happened to have very decent people. They were just belonged, you know, they had to make a living there, you know, they had to belong to the party. And so they picked it up and they looked at the books, in the book case, and then they said, oh, you are not allowed, people weren't allowed you. They burned all the books by Jewish authors. And she said, my mother had them, we had them. And they said, oh, you can't have those books, you got to take them off. And I said, oh no, in a private household, you're allowed to have it. So they left it alone. But then they took all the drawers apart, they took everything out of drawers. They did smash, and most people, that's why it was called Crystal Night, because they smashed, and also stores, you know, Jewish stores, they smashed the windows, glass was all over the streets, and they smashed people's belongings. But that they didn't do with us, they just threw everything out of the drawers and looked. I said, what are you looking for? My mother said, so we're looking, well, this, how it started in France. A young man who he was of Polish origin, and they said all the Jews from Poland have to be exported back to Poland. And in Poland they didn't want them, so they were at the border. Some of them were shot there, and some came back. And this guy, his parents were among them, and he lived in France already. And he got very upset, and he went to the German embassy and he shot this one. I don't know, at the moment I don't know his name. Pomerad was his name. But he shot him, and then he died 2 years later, and that was a good excuse for the Nazis to start something. It was every Jew's fault that he died. And then they said, they didn't know why they were there. They said, we're looking for some correspondence with that boy, that young guy who shot the Pomerad. That was their idea, that's why they were there. But anyway, in the meantime, I said, I have to go to school. And my school was in the synagogue building. The Jewish school was in the synagogue building. And I had to go on the streetcar for 20 minutes downtown. That's where it was. So I went, you know, we felt dutiful, and we felt that we had to go. And on the way, on the next stop, my girlfriend got in. And she whispered to me, my father has been arrested. They arrested all the men, all the Jewish men, but my father was there. So they arrested a lot of them were sent to concentration camp, but in our city they were sent to the police station, the jail there, I think, for a week, and then they let them go. So we were kind of lucky, but other people were killed, some, and they kept some in concentration camps. And so then we said, so we went on, and then we heard on the people talking on the streetcar. They said the synagogue is burned. You know, they burned all the synagogues that night and all over Germany. And we said, we can't go down, but we can't see that. That's terrible, you know. So we got off and we went home. When I came home, I really broke down. And I was 30 years old then. And so I told Lisa, my mother was busy with the Nazis there, and I told her, and then one of the SS, the stormtrooper, was standing there, and he said, why is she crying? So she told him, he just shook his head. I mean, I don't think he was so much for it, but he went along like a lot of people had to. So this was, and then it went on, my father, the business also, my father couldn't have any business anymore. They took it over, the Nazis took it over, no money, nothing. And when you left Germany, you couldn't take anything with you. But we were lucky to leave. So by June 1939, and the war broke out in September 1939, we were lucky we couldn't get into America yet because you had to have a quota, and the German quota wasn't that big. So we had to wait. I mean, you know, so many could go a year. And I had two uncles who had left Germany in 1936, and they could take all their money and all their goods with them. So they laid out money for us to go to England. You had to go, if you wanted to go to England, you had to pay, you had to be, you know, have enough money to live there on this money. And so they lent it to us, you know. Got me back, we couldn't, wouldn't have. But anyway, so we got into England, we lived in London, and then 3 months, but it was always talk of war, you know, you knew that probably eventually Hitler would invade somewhere, and then September 1st, it happened. The war broke out, they invaded Poland, you probably have read some of this. And then the schools evacuated. The school sent the children to the country, and every household had to take some children. And so I hadn't gone to school yet. I didn't know anyone. I was kind of afraid, you know, and with the language and everything. But then I went and I met a lot of people who also were refugees, and we sort of felt at home with each other. We stayed there a couple of months. Actually, the school stayed longer, but we decided to go home, to go back to England, because to London. And then we went to, there were no schools open, so I had a girlfriend, she was very smart. She went to private school. She went to them, she said, we're refugees, we can't pay, but we want to go to school, so they took us in, and it's very nice. And then nothing happened until the late spring. Then they started to bomb, and London was bombed very badly. Every night we would go to shelter, and every night, you know, my father was, as a German, they didn't know, they said spies would have come over, you know, I don't blame them, they were afraid. Well, we did that as a Japanese too, and here in America. So he was interned, he was an Isle of Man, way up north there. And until the day before we left, he could come home. And so my mother and I were alone, but we lived in an apartment house, so we really weren't alone. So every night we went down, the first 2 floors were the shelters, you know, and we had one small camp bed together, and we slept there one night. And it was bombing, and the people, you know, came from outside, they were bombed out, they came to us because they never bombed, they never got bombed, but around us they got bombed out. And so it went on, and then finally in October, the next year, 1940, we could leave England and go to America. And that was very, very dangerous because the war was in Europe, and the waters, the ocean was full of warships and submarines and everything. So we had to go with a convoy. Am I too long?
About a minute or two. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll finish up in a minute. And we went with a convoy, and it was a small ship, but our ship had engine trouble, so we had to stop in the middle of the ocean, but they couldn't wait for us. They had to go on. And then a submarine was sighted, and we had one gun, and we thought that was the most. I think that was when I was closest to death ever, you know, because it was really almost. It was a miracle that, and he apparently sunk the submarine. We never, after a while, he never saw it come up anymore. And that was, and then we had a 3-week trip around Newfoundland and came down to Boston, and we stayed in Boston. That's my story.
Just to recap the story. So she left Germany when she was around 13, stayed in England, and lived there for a couple of years, and then came to the U.S. through very treacherous waters in the Atlantic. And one of the things that struck me as she was telling her story was that her father was suspected of being a spy because he was German, and the whole refugee issue, right, back then is so similar to the refugee issue that we're dealing with now. I just couldn't help but see those parallels. But in any case, history has a way of continually repeating itself. So thank you very much. So Mrs. NaMais is coming from a very different perspective, and I'll let her explain her story. So Mrs. NaMais, thank you.
Okay. My story is completely different. I'm a Holocaust survivor. I was born in Greece, and in 1944, the German army occupied Greece. The first, after occupying Athens, they occupied Salonika, which had a very large Jewish community. It's a completely different Jewish community than the one from Germany. We are Sephardic Jews. We believe in the same things, but we speak Spanish, they speak German. So in 1944, Germany occupied Salonika. Their first aim was to occupy, to invade all the Jewish homes and get the people out of their homes and put them in camps. I was a lucky one. I was not a Greek citizen. My father, his ancestors came from Spain when Isabel, the Catholic queen, had thrown all the Jews out of Spain. My father kept his Spanish citizen, never became a Greek citizen, and that's what saved me from concentration camp. So in 1944, the Germans put us in a train, just like any Jews, and took us to Bergen-Belsen. We were there for a whole year and had the same treatment as the other Jews. But we were lucky. Spain gave an order to Germans to liberate or to send the Spanish Jews to liberate them after the war. In March of 1945, they took us out of Bergen-Belsen, put us on a train, going to a different concentration camp. We were lucky. The American and British Army liberated us in Hillersleben, Germany in 1945. They took us out of the trains where we were hiding, took us to Hillersleben, put us in German homes, gave us the best treatment possible. Then the war was over and we were put back on ships going back to Greece, where we met some of our friends. Unfortunately, I didn't find any of my friends. We were 25 kids in my classroom. Not one came back. They were all burned in their German ovens. Then we were back in Athens, and the Jewish community sent us to the United States. We went on a ship. We came to New York. I was liberated. I went on my knees. I thank God for being back a free person. We came to Boston. I had one child, 2 years old. I had to take care of my child, take care of my husband, and thank God we're back here and we're free and happy.
Did you know any English when you came over?
Yes. We had to take, in the Greek schools, we had to take Greek and then 2 foreign languages. One was English and the other one, we spoke French at home. We didn't speak Greek, we spoke French. So I learned German, English, French, and Greek. Europeans have to know many languages.
Yes, that's
It's
right.
not
That's
like
right.
America.
Right.
So my story is short.
Yeah.
I'm here, thank God.
Just to summarize and just to help you understand something that maybe you already know, but I didn't quite make the connections. But Spain was part of the Axis powers, right? Germany, Spain, Japan, Italy at the beginning. And Franco was the dictator in Spain. And so what Mrs. NaMais is saying is that Franco had told Hitler that the Jews who were of Spanish citizenship were not to be executed. They were not to be killed. And so that's what she's saying. That's why she's alive today. And I was fascinated, quite frankly, that Hitler listened to anybody. I just thought that he just did whatever he wanted to do. But apparently, because they had this alliance, the Spanish Jews that were in the concentration camps in Germany were spared, although they did have the same experiences. They weren't killed.
And as of today, Franco is inviting back the Spanish Jews to come back and live back in Spain.
Right. So what she had also mentioned earlier was that Queen Isabella, who was in power at the time of Columbus, right, back in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue, she had expelled all the Jews out of Spain at that time. So this was really monumental for them to be able to find a home back in Spain, 500 years later, well, 450 years later. So a little bit of a history lesson as well. Okay, so I'm wondering if any of you might happen to have any questions for either Mrs. Smith or Mrs. NaMais. Yes, Isaiah.
So can you explain what you had during the concentration camps, what the aspect of it was, like what happened there?
What was life like for you?
I couldn't hear the question.
Yeah, what was life like for you? What was life like for you in the concentration camps? What were some aspects of it that you could share
The
with
life
us?
in concentration camp, it wasn't an easy one, let me tell you. First of all, at 6 o'clock or 5:30 in the morning, every morning we had to get up. No matter how cold, rain, snow, whatever, we had to go and stand in line. Our names were called. If somebody was not there, they would come back in the room, take you out of your bed, and make you stand in front of everybody. We had latrines that were both for men and women, outdoors, in the cold, in the snow. The life was miserable even though we were Spanish citizens. But the only difference was that we were not executed.
Yes.
I'm not sure if you said this, but was your family ever split up at any point?
Was your family ever split up at any point?
Was what?
Was your family ever split up at any point?
My family?
Yes.
Were
you ever separated?
No. I was with my father and my mother. I didn't have any siblings. I was an only child. And I was already not a child anymore. I was 22 years old.
That was also part of the agreement too. That those families were able to stay intact, again, because of their Spanish citizenship. Yes?
I have a question for both of you. What was the hardest part about transitioning back into kind of everyday life after the war was over?
So what was the hardest part about transitioning back into regular everyday life after the war was over?
It wasn't very easy, especially I came here with a 2-year-old son, my husband, and we had, thank God we knew English, so that was very easy for us. And we were in a house with a gentleman who was very nice. He adopted us, and he made us feel at home. And since we knew the language, it was really much easier to get accustomed. But with a 2-year-old, I had a hard time. My story is that I put him in a nursery school, and every night he would come home and cry, and I would ask the school, yes, put him in a closet because he wouldn't drink his milk. So I had to take him again out of there. I couldn't work anymore, so it was hard. But thank God, everything worked out well.
When I was 13 years old, it was hard for my parents. It wasn't hard for me. Children take everything. They almost sometimes think it's an adventure, go to a new country. And by the time I was in England, I learned English. I had it in school. But they used to teach it not to speak. And then in school, unless you spoke at home, the language, the other language, you learn grammar, you learn translation, but you never learned how to speak. But anyway, I went to school right away, and it was hard to adjust, even to have friends, because it's a little different, The Europeans are a little different from the Americans, and think different, but I could adjust. But then when we first came to America, we lived in Brooklyn, and there were a lot of Jews in that class, but I was friends with the others, but they are non-Jews. And then I came to Woburn. I lived in Woburn for 20 years actually. Went to school, went to college while I was in Woburn. And there I was the only Jew in the class, and I wasn't used to that because we couldn't be with other people, with Christians or religions. But they were laughing to me. They were wonderful. I really, and I enjoyed it. I was free, and it was not such a hard time. And my parents, they came. My father, no money, no job, but he was in the leather business in Germany. And he said, "I'm staying in my business." That's why we stayed in Boston. And he adjusted too, but it took a long time. And his English wasn't very good, but later on he only talked very good business English, but not regular. So that was a little harder for my parents. Thanks for the question.
Yes.
How were you treated after
How are you treated in the United States after having come from Europe?
Oh, I would say very well. What's that? How we were treated in the United States.
Yeah, how were you treated in the United States after you came from Europe? After all, how
In the United States, well, very welcome. Everybody was adopting us, trying to do everything they could to help us in every way. They got me a job immediately. After almost a month, I had a job. I could work with my child in the nursery school. And we felt the warmth, and it was so different for us after coming back from such an ordeal, a whole year in camp. And so that's...
Mrs. Smith, I just want to ask, did you run into any issues being German in the United States?
No. I would say a lot of people, a lot of the refugees said to me, "Oh, we won't speak German anymore. It's so unpopular. The Germans are unpopular." That was only at the Nazi time. I mean, I never felt like that. The language was the language. It was old and it existed for hundreds of years, not thousands, but hundreds. And I also want to say that, in America, we always felt, until now maybe, they always welcomed refugees. And that was the wonderful part of it.
Yeah, Ms. Mansfield.
Mrs. Smith, in 2015, 2 years ago, U.S. attorneys filed suit against the German Republic for those Holocaust victims that had possessions stolen and given to Göring and other, Nazi officials to get them back. Did you have possessions stolen from you of value?
I don't know about 2015, but this went on ever since the war. They tried to get back, say they had possessions, they had real estate or their business. But we were unfortunate. Our city and that whole aspect became Russian. It's my city was Königsberg, and it's now Kaliningrad. So we had no claim. But the others did. This was all along that they got money back, or they got the business, money for the business. And they probably redid that again, but they still wouldn't be lucky enough. One of the exceptions.
So your family never got any of their... I say, yeah.
Did you guys see any riots during the time or after the war?
Did you see any riots going on during that time?
In Germany?
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't there. They would be arrested there. I don't think anybody dared riot. The freedom wasn't there.
I think the only thing that might have resembled a riot might have been Kristallnacht when the Germans invaded all the Jewish homes and businesses. But that
What
was...
do you mean rioting against the government? What do you mean?
Yeah, like a bunch of people.
just general unrest.
Yeah.
I think Hitler pretty much kiboshed
I
it.
think they should be like that. They would be arrested right away. They might have thought different. There were many people who were not Nazis. If they were all Nazis, we all would have been killed before. I don't know, it's the individual. No, but they had to go along, for their job, for their making a living.
Yes.
I have a question for both of you. What was it like to see the progression of like technology and stuff over the years?
What's it been like for you to see the progression of technology over the years? Because you've seen a lot, right? You've seen a lot of things happen from 1920, 30, 40. What's the nature of your question is what's it been like, or what sorts of things have they seen? Or?
What's it been like in experiencing
Like
with
your
it?
parents probably, maybe not your parents, your grandparents, I would say.
Yeah.
The last 40, 50 years been so enormous, I'm still not a computer person. I can do it, and as you think that more and more so weird. It's amazing, We had radio, television, we had radio, was already good. And cars, that's the one that I can remember, telephones, yes.
Yes, Mrs. Coons.
Have you both been back to visit your hometown, and what are your impressions from visiting, if you have visited at home?
If I have been back to my hometown,
Yeah.
very frequently. And I have to be really thankful to the Greek population. Some, I shouldn't say. They were very kind. They hid many Jewish people, so they wouldn't be taken by the Germans. And when we came back, we were really welcomed with open arms. But I have one thing that I omitted to tell them. When the Germans occupied Salonika, they called all the men from the age of 14 to 21. They went in a big place outdoors in the winter, made them undressed completely, and then whipped them like a lion. And I have to report that because this is something that stayed in my mind and I can never forget. It was really...
The Germans?
And the Greeks couldn't do anything. At that point, they wanted to do something, but the Germans were there with their whips, not allowing anything to happen.
What was the question?
So, Mrs. Smith, have you been back home to Germany?
What
What has that been like?
was the question?
Yeah.
It was many years, it was a different story. It was Greece and to go back to Germany. Some people went right away and they also could claim things. And of course mine was in the East and we couldn't go to our city. But we didn't even go back to Germany until I think 1970s we started going back. And then people different, the young people, and they were very nice to us. I really have to say. And we also, my city, but a lot of cities in the western part of Germany, like my husband comes from Nuremberg, famous, infamous Nuremberg. That was the Nazi city. And they invited him back. They invited all the Jews back. And we went one year, what was it? I think it was in the late 90s. And they were wonderful to us. And I say, these are people, what have they got to do with it, the younger people? And when we saw older people our age, we were a little hesitant. What did they do, And unless they proved it to me, I have a very good friend who's my age. My oldest son went back to study the leather business because he wanted to go into business, and it's a very, very good German school. He went back there, and he was very lucky to have a landlady who was wonderful. She only wanted foreigners, and she happened to have two Jews, one from Belgium and one, and my son. And I went, that was the first time I went to Germany. That was 1980. 1980. Yeah, and I went alone because my husband couldn't go. He was in business, he couldn't go. And that landlady became so friendly. Still, she came to visit, we went to visit them, and we became very good friends. Very lovely. I have to, I'm a forgiver. I don't forget, but I forgive. And I can't blame those people who never did anything, And then finally we went back to my city because the communists were gone, It was still Russian, but not communistic, so you could go. And it was very interesting for me to see I lived in two different houses, and to see that they're still standing there. A lot of the were bombed out about too, but this was like uptown, where they couldn't bomb. so much. And it was very, but it's all Russian now, completely Russian.
Yes. When did you meet your husband? Little love story. When did you meet your husband?
Where?
When and where?
I met him in Greece.
Okay.
Yeah, right after the liberation. And the way we met, at that time I had a very nice voice. And we went on a trip, on a bus trip, and I was singing. And when we got out of the bus, he said to me, can I meet you again? I would like to hear your voice. That's how we met. We got married. And then we had our firstborn. That's when we decided, he was a dentist, and he decided we should, since we had the opportunity of coming to the big, beautiful America, so we decided to come. And he had to go back to dental school and become a dentist here. So that's my story.
How long have you been married for?
Yeah, how long were you married?
We were married 32 years.
32 years. Mrs. Smith, how about you?
I met my husband, he also, as I said before, he comes from Germany, but I met him in America. I was 14 years old when I came to America. But 3 years later, 2 years later, I was 16. Then I met him through relatives. I used to go to New York. My uncle, one of those who had left and lived in France, lived in New York now. And I had a lot of friends from Germany, but also refugees in New York. So I used to love to go to New York in the summer, stay there for 3 weeks with them. And then the grandmother there knew my husband and the family. It was sort of a relationship, but we are not related. And, you must meet Warner, you must meet him. And I met him when they were 16. He didn't think of getting married or anything like that. And I lived in Boston, he lived in New York. But eventually it came out. 7 years later, we got married because we went to college and we were ready to get married. We did. And I'm married now, it'll be 67 years this year.
Wow.
And he's doing very well right now.
Yes.
You mentioned forgiveness. Can you talk a little bit about reconciliation and about kind of what message you want this generation to take away from you?
Yes. Can you talk about reconciliation, forgiveness, and can you, in light of your own stories, give this generation something to think about with regards to reconciliation and forgiveness? So, Mrs. NaMais?
Forgiveness? No. Forgetting? Yes. But no forgiveness.
I'm the opposite. And I have a rabbi who's a rabbi a new rabbi in Peabody. He comes to us once a month on Friday night. And I loved what he said. He said, who are the closest, who helped Israel the most? The Germans. The Germans did. They wanted forgiveness, and they have done wonderful things for the Israelis. And he said, you have to forgive. You have to. And that's what I like. That's my client. I feel, everybody has something good. People who are bad, they have something good. And I think you have to think that way. Maybe some people, I don't know if I would ever forgive Hitler, but he was a crazy man.
Ms. Karen? Do you see any parallels with today's world and the world of Nazi Germany, and in particular with regards to the issue of refugees and so on?
Hard question to answer. It's a hard question to answer.
I think there's a lot of, I hate to say that, politics, but this regime now here, it can develop into something. And I've read articles and some people, they interviewed in the magazine we are reading, it's called The Moment. There were people, they interviewed philosophers and thinkers, And some said no, and America's a different country, it can't happen here. And others say, if you don't watch it, it can. And the way this, our president now starts things, it can go very bad. It can, but why not? I think it does. I think you don't spoke about this yet.
Have either of you been to the Holocaust Memorial at all? And,
Oh yeah. Yes,
and how when you were there, how did you feel? Like, it's probably very emotional. Could you describe those emotions?
Of course, yes, very emotional. We spent the day in Washington open in the 80s. I think next year we spent the whole day there. We spent it in the archives too, and we found the Germans were, always very accurate, and they recorded, just when everybody, the date that they perished, and they kept all the perishing, not that they were killed, but they kept all these dates, and I found my aunts and uncles and everybody, and that was very emotional. And also, at one spot there, my husband brought me over. My father's mother came from a small town, which had a lot of Jews in Germany, and my uncle, one of the ones who went to, they needed a new synagogue, and my uncle helped build it. And there was the, I don't know if you know what the Torah is, there was the ark and the Torah. They had brought that over part of the ark, and it was from that town. It was very emotional for me.
Mrs. NaMais, have you been to the Holocaust Museum? What was that like?
I've been to the Holocaust Museum in Florida. I haven't been to the one in Washington. And for me, it's a remembrance because my father's name is inscribed on the wall. So every time I went there, I went by saw his name, said a prayer, and it's quite a job they did on that memorial.
Can you just give a quick summary of what happened with your father?
Well, my father was with us until the end, the day we were liberated. They took us out of the train, put us in German homes. Unfortunately, my father contracted typhus fever. He was sick. They took him to a German hospital. He saw the liberation, but he died there, and he was buried in Germany. And unfortunately, the Russians built a football field on top of all the graves. But we know exactly where he was buried. So it's not a good remembrance. I don't like too much to talk about it.
Thank you. Any other questions?
During the time you were in captivity, did you see anybody get executed?
Were you a witness to any of the executions while you were at
No, the only witness, every night in front of our window in our barracks, we would see big trucks with bodies, dead bodies. And that's the only thing we saw. We didn't see anything else. But that was enough.
Okay, time for one more question. Anyone? All right. Thank you all. You've all been terrific. And Mrs. NaMais.